How does one begin to love themselves? Breaks and cracks shatter us in our everyday lives. Slowly but steadily until we succumb to its scathe. And yet, we can put the pieces back together again. We can take ourselves, scars and all, and mend them back into one. Beautiful, whole, and loved. Kintsugi, also known as golden joinery, is a 400-plus-year-old Japanese art form used to repair broken pottery with golden lacquer. According to art historians, the art of kintsugi was created accidentally in the 15th century when Shogun Ashikaga Yoshimasa broke his favorite tea bowl and, after sending it for repairs, was disappointed when it came back with metal pins. However, when local craftsmen came up with the idea of filling the bowl's cracks with golden lacquer, an entirely new art form was created. Since then, kintsugi has not only been an art form used for mending broken pottery, but has also become a metaphor for life. Breaks, cracks, flaws, and imperfections become celebrated and cherished. The histories of our experiences are not hidden, but rather emphasized in the entirety of our being. Kintsugi is the art of golden scars, highlighting and enhancing the beauty that comes with experience and hardship. It is the art of resiliency.
Hello, my name is Justine Kaneda, and I am a Sansei Japanese-American performing artist and filmmaker. At Stanford, I am majoring in human biology with a concentration in psychosocial determinants of health and well-being, as well as minoring in theater and performance studies. I am a lifelong performing artist and have been dancing for most of my life, and also began acting and filmmaking during my time at Stanford.
Culminating in a narrative dance film, my project seeks to further explore this concept of kintsugi, specifically how this art form can be applied to human beings. Through my studies of human biology and theater and performance, I am curious in researching the universal question of what makes us human through an artistic lens. I also hope to further explore the interconnection of my cultural and artistic identities, in addition to the deeply intertwined relationship human beings have with the world.
Through my major in human biology, I have been given the flexibility to branch into multiple different disciplines in my courses, including but not limited to biology, psychology, and comparative studies in race and ethnicity, as well as various theater and dance courses through my minor.
It was in Professor Stephen Murphy Shigematsu's sophomore intro sem, Heartfulness, Mindfulness, Compassion, and Responsibility, where I first discovered the art form of kintsugi, as well as how I could begin to integrate my Japanese-American identity in my creative works. In a TAPS class titled Performing Race, Gender, and Sexuality, taught by Dr. Gigi Otavaro, who eventually became my Honors in the Arts mentor for this project, was where I was able to first workshop my idea for this film. What drew me to kintsugi in the first place was its emphasis on both a personal and universal perspective of healing. In kintsugi, the cracks we accumulate throughout our lives are not something to hide away from, but rather a part of what makes us who we are. I think the translation of this metaphor of healing is universal, yet it's the individual's unique histories with their experiences that also allow space for intimacy. In my film, I utilize essentially two different versions of self. An inner self and an outer self. For my inner self, I symbolize this through the use of dance and gesture to represent my character's internal emotional state, which included feelings of pain, trauma, in turmoil for the beginning of my character's emotional journey, and then later transitioning to feelings of healing, resolution, and acceptance for the end portion of my character's journey. My outer self was then the external manifestation of these internal feelings and emotions. This self exists in the physical world and is the representation of my character's current emotional state in the present moment. This was represented by the initial cracks we see in the beginning of the film, and then later transitioning to the golden lacquer cracks in the film's resolution. Throughout the film, these two versions of self are directly connected to one another, and it is through this connection that the audience can be guided through my character's journey to self-acceptance, growth, and reclamation of identity. This project combines various visual and performing arts disciplines, such as film, dance, and screen acting, into one interdisciplinary project. This project then also combines these artistic disciplines with the research of performance ethnography and family lineage. Delving first into film and dance theory specifically, a term that became significant in my research for this project was this idea of the filmic performance. Layleen Jayamman, who is an author, filmmaker, and professor of cinema studies at the University of Sydney, provides a working definition of this term, which states, "In film, the lighting, editing, camera distance, and movement are equally potent performers, so that one could talk of filmic performance as including all these technical elements. These elements can transform the phenomenal body to such an extent that one can say that the body that cinema materializes did not exist prior to the invention of film." Essentially, this idea states that when creating dance specifically for film, there are certain filmic elements in play that you must take into account for contributing to the final product. When creating my project, there were several technical elements that I kept in mind when choreographing and editing my final dance piece. This includes playing with the lighting, camera framing and composition, as well as editing techniques in post-production. I first learned of performance ethnography during fall quarter of this project year, when my Honors in the Arts mentor provided me with an article written by Judith Hamera, a dance scholar and professor at Princeton University. Hamera defines performance ethnography as ethnographic research embodied by the ethnographer, the fieldwork community, an audience, or any combination of these participants. Performance ethnography rests on the idea that bodies harbor knowledge about culture, and that performance allows for the exchange of that knowledge across bodies. As described in her article provided by the Sage Handbook of Qualitative Research, Hamera stresses the importance of performance ethnography being both inter- and polydisciplinary, because performance itself demands it. It is interdisciplinary because it relies on and forges connections between a variety of fields, and it is polydisciplinary because so many areas claim and contribute to it. In other words, performance ethnography is a diligent strategy of inquiry that both borrows from and contributes to a myriad of disciplines.
In my film, I knew that I wanted to connect my study of kintsugi with my own sansei, or third generation, Japanese American heritage and family lineage. I was very lucky when both my maternal and paternal grandparents agreed to let me interview them for my project.
In my interviews, I composed 3 main themes of questions to ask. These included questions about their immigration story to the United States from Japan, questions surrounding the principles of resiliency and gaman, which can be generally translated to perseverance, patience, and tolerance in English, as well as questions relating to ideas of happiness, love, and family.
From these interviews, I was able to not only learn more about my own family history, but also deepen my understanding of kintsugi and how these principles can be applied to human beings.
For my project, I took sound bites directly from my interviews and interwove them as part of the film's soundscape.
There I find love, care, faith, and forgiveness for each other.
For my character in the film, it is the wise words from her elders that guide her on her journey to love and acceptance of herself. Like my character, I'm very grateful to my family for their endless support and guidance in my life as I navigate my own identity and place in this world.